Welcome to SVG-TV News for Tuesday, July 7th, 2020. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. Former Prime Minister Sir James Mitchell says the government's push for a new parliamentary building at this time shows that it is out of touch with the needs of the people. Sir James, who was speaking on Boom FM today, says there are many Vincentians reeling from the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the focus should be on providing support to these persons.
Building a parliament building during the COVID crisis is wrong thing at the wrong time. And it shows that the government is out of touch with the people's feeling. I am 100% in support of that.
Speaking on the collapse of regional airline Liat, the former Prime Minister said he supports the view that any airline that comes on stream as Liat's replacement should be private sector led.
I established links with a private sector company overseas, and I think it is important we should look for international partner again and restructure it properly, taking the lessons we have learned on. Governments must pay ahead with regard to getting the regulations right. And governments must, if they want to invest with the private sector, give the government's preference shares and no voting shares. Let the private sector run the show. That's my view.
Sir James said there are airlines in the region which can ensure intra-regional travel is maintained, noting that there is no need for large planes but frequency of flights.
And organizing an airline industry, you have to pay careful attention to the planes that are in service and those that are being manufactured. We have this bias in the OECS with the old-time regulation that single-engine planes cannot be used for commercial purposes. But that is only around here. Even in the Northern Caribbean, in St. Martin, St. Barts, etc., it's the Cessna Grand Caravan single-engine plane that is doing the operation. And we can have a Cessna Grand Caravan running between these islands like a bus with 12 people at a time and all the cargo that you want. So leave this to the private sector to determine the feasibility of what will give the service.
Several persons have indicated an interest in contesting the upcoming general elections on the opposition New Democratic Party NDP ticket. So says party leader Dr. Godwin Friday. Over the weekend, public servant Philip Jackson expressed an interest in being the NDP's candidate for Mariquah. Welcoming Jackson's announcement, the NDP leader said all potential candidates will have to go through a selection process.
He's indicated his interest. And it is very exciting for the party to have, such people of such quality showing interest, and we welcome that. We'll fast track the selection process, which is what we're doing now. Sometimes it has to do with the candidate timing of it.
Dr. Friday said that the confirmation of most of the NDP candidates for the upcoming general election has been made with the exception of 3 constituencies, which will soon be finalized.
Right now we have, as you know, the 2 seats that are undeclared in a sense, such as Mariquah and East St. George. And in both seats there are several persons who have offered themselves to be candidates, several capable people in each constituency. And so we are moving as quickly as possible to finalize the selection process. We know that people are anxious about it, and so are we, because we want to be able to declare them all and to have them working on the ground. And so you will hear from us very soon.
Okay,
weeks, not months. Weeks in a matter of, they still have the formalities of the process of the party selection in 3 constituencies. That's the 2 that we're talking about in Mariquah and East St. George and North Windward. But, those can be done fairly quickly.
And commenting on the selection of candidates to run on the NDP ticket, on radio today, the former leader of the party and founder, Sir James Mitchell, said that it is all about who the people choose, and that based on his analysis, a Dr. Friday-led team stands a good chance of winning the upcoming general elections.
You be very careful about the date that you call an election. I am pretty sure Prime Minister Government Gonsalves not calling the election before his birthday. What really matters is the framework of the party and the mood of the people. And it's a question of leadership. And then you place the right person. This election, the mood of St. Vincent is, tell me if I'm wrong, a fed up Ralph.
We will find out if that is true or not.
That's right. Number two, recent polls I know have shown that Dr. Friday is ahead with likability and integrity over Ralph and Camilo. Likability. In other words, people don't have a negative view of Dr. Friday. And that is not just a matter of voting for the comrade again, you know. Because, you see, it's all in the context of COVID. It's all in the context of pressure. All in the context of victimization, all in the question of choice.
Do not wait to get registered. Get registered ASAP. That's the advice coming from Supervisor of Elections, Dora James, as she spoke on NBC's Morning Cup program, sensitizing the public on the process one must go through to be registered and re-registered for a national ID card. Registration is necessary for an ID card and to be part of the voting process. The election supervisor said while there is continuous registration, one should not wait until the last minute.
We would have been doing the process over and over again and throughout the times. So it would not be that need to rush. Yes, we have a special period of registration as election is announced, and that little part would be a bit hectic. So that is why we continue to encourage our electors, encourage our people, do what you can now. Don't put it off for tomorrow. Tomorrow is not yours. So you come, you re-register, you go to your various registration centers. And for those persons who are procrastinators, we invite them. Don't wait until the last minute to put a pressure on the electoral office, although we would have to complete it. But it is wiser to do it because you have the opportunity every week in your constituency, every Monday and Wednesday, from 3:30 to 5:30, you have that opportunity to do so.
Highlighting the requirements for registration was Deputy Supervisor of Elections, Sylvester King. He said one must be 18, a citizen of SVG, or a Commonwealth citizen who has lived in SVG legally for a specific period of time. King said for registration to take place, a birth certificate is an absolute necessary document.
Carry a birth certificate, and in this case the one with the parrot, because we know some persons still have the old, and that has already been removed from the system. We want the one with the parrot. You walk with that original birth certificate along with a photocopy. If you're married, and this is mainly for the women, you carry along your marriage certificate along with a photocopy. You're citizen of St. Vincent and the Grenadines by naturalization, we need to see the citizenship certificate along with a photocopy. Let's say you were not born in St. Vincent, but your parents are Vincentian, or one of your parents is a Vincentian. We need to see the original copy of that birth certificate and along with a copy, because we're keeping all of these documents on your file, on your record. And it is important that we establish this. So you bring these things along.
Some person's name would have been removed from the voters list due to changes in the law, and King highlighted what is needed for these persons to have their name returned to the voters list.
Order for them to be replaced on that list. They must provide the evidence. They must show that they have lived in the constituency that they're seeking to be registered. And we would need to see their passports, because some persons would have been perhaps out of state, and we would need to see and ascertain when did they come back to the country. You know, I came in contact with a registrant yesterday who was making the case that, you know, she wants to get back onto the list. So we gave her the information, and we said, you must have lived where you're seeking to be registered for 6 months. And she raised the issue, and I had to stop her immediately. Oh, she's aware of persons who have not been here for 6 months, but their names are back on the list. I said, you cannot make that assumption, because the person made their registration status is what will guide them being able to re-register at that particular time.
In other news, CARICOM new chair, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, said regional integration and cooperation help member countries, including SVG, manage the COVID-19 pandemic. He was at the time addressing a virtual meeting last evening for CARICOM Day, attended by more than 25 permanent representatives to the United Nations, discussing the topic, regional integration movement in the time of COVID-19. PM Gonsalves told the permanent representative member countries were able to access help from regional institutions even with some borders closed.
Without CARICOM, things would have been far more difficult for us. In the very early days of this pandemic, the distinguished Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley, with only a touch of hyperbole, said that CARICOM is the antidote to COVID. The Caribbean Public Health Agency. The work of the staff at CARICOM located in Trinidad was heroic. Similarly, we utilized another institution of CARICOM, CDEMA, the CARICOM Disaster Emergency Management Agency, because we were dealing with a public health emergency.
Dr. Gonsalves said as a body, CARICOM sourced financial assistance to help member countries cushion the economic impact of COVID-19. He boasts of SVG not closing its borders and having a full recovery of persons who contracted COVID-19. He, however, noted that the country is still feeling the effects of the pandemic and pointed out the contributions of non-CARICOM countries such as Venezuela and Cuba, and called out some U.S. senators whom he said have been bashing the Cuban nurses.
Cuban doctors and nurses, including St. Vincent to which they came. And that's why I find it, at this particular time, especially, the move by some United States senators to label as human trafficking the involvement of Cuban doctors and nurses. They are modern-day angels. They go around to help and to help selflessly. They are a remarkable people and nation.
PM Gonsalves also told the UN permanent representatives that CARICOM stands in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. The representatives drawn from Africa, Canada, Latin America, Asia and Europe were in full praise of how CARICOM managed to work as a unit during this period of COVID-19. And SVG has now placed itself among the league of countries which have the capacity to respond in a short space of time to any emerging and re-emerging threats of COVID-19. So said Chief Laboratory Technologist Elliot Samuel, who was speaking on the in-country PCR COVID-19 testing, which commenced on June 24th.
Eventually to realize the achievement of a thermal cycler, which is that instrument that is going to allow us to do PCR, and the achievement of all of the supplemental equipment, the biological safety cabinets, the centrifuges, etc., that is necessary to achieve polymerase chain reaction testing or PCR testing for COVID-19 on Ireland. This technology is one of the It's considered one of the most important scientific achievements of the 21st century. And it's really an important milestone, not just for the Ministry of Health, but for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, for us to be doing PCR testing on island, which is considered the gold standard of molecular techniques. At this juncture, we are only going to be testing for COVID-19, but our strategic plans and strategic direction include in the not too distant future testing for other viruses as well.
Samuel speaks on the molecular lab unit, which is a new addition to the laboratory service program in the ministry, which he said has been quite effective.
It is designed with the capacity and intention to detect SARS-CoV virus, the virus that causes COVID-19 disease. We commenced testing of public samples on Wednesday the 24th of May 2020, and getting to this milestone was by no means an easy achievement. If I can just chronicle some of the events that led us to this point and some of the challenges. Initially we began with having decided to pursue on-island diagnostic capacity. That led us to the consultation with the Pan American Health Organization to decide on the appropriate instrument, the appropriate methods, the appropriate resources that is going to allow us to achieve that. On island, we had to find the most appropriate space to achieve what is called a 3-room workflow that allows for PCR testing.
In a recent update from the Ministry of Health, it was noted that there remains no active COVID-19 cases in SVG, and that so far 946 persons have been tested for COVID-19 with 0 results pending and 43 persons in quarantine. Truma government has emerged the School of the Year for the 2020 Primary Schools Performing Arts Festival, PRISPAF. The best program also went to Truma government, with Beckway Anglican taking the award for Best Prepared School, while Lomans Leeward Anglican was voted the most disciplined. Jeffon Duncan of the Fairhall government, who was a judge Best Female Vocalist, copped the Princess of PRISPAF Award 2020, with Seacott John of Paget Farm government, who was a judge Most Promising, taking the title for Prince of PRISPAF 2020. At the award ceremony held today at the Methodist Church Hall, 6 teachers were recognized for their commitment to PRISPAF. They are Hyacinth Edwards of Layou Government, Bonita Adams of Pamela's Government, Roslyn Johnny of Salt Rivers Methodist, Brian Dabry of Connery Government, Ingrid Lave and Devon Child of the Obia Government. Cultural Officer Martin Kwashi said that due to COVID-19 pandemic, PRISPAF 2020 was done a little differently, and again noted his disappointment with the number of schools which took part in the annual festival.
That there are some schools who decide that they do not want to take part in the primary school festival, and the parents are complaining to me that they have students in the school and they can't get to perform. I said this is a Ministry of Education issue, and they must take that to the Ministry of Education. So I'm appealing to the folks at the Ministry of Education to tell the schools that we want our students to be exposed, every single one of the schools. We can't have some performing and some in the cool wondering whether they would get a chance. That is not right for a democratic country. So we need the principals of these schools to understand that they had their time and now it is time for the students to perform. If I had my way, all the schools would have been performing, because you do not abuse children, and this is a form of abuse.
Marketing manager of the main sponsor ECGC, Rachel Haslam, said she was a bit disappointed not being able to have the 2 grand days for the children to perform and showcase their talent, and encourage them to work on their craft.
It is the Primary Schools Performing Arts Festival. It is so very vital, as it gives our youth the opportunity to discover their talents at a tender age before the adolescent inhibitions start creeping in. Thus, it's with immense pride that we gather here today to honor all of the participants, and particularly the winners of this year's festival. Continue to develop your art form, as who knows, if you are talented enough, passionate enough, and disciplined enough to work very hard to develop your skill and talent, then you may even be able to earn your living by it, as Ms. Brown said that she has done. And at the very least, it will make you a well-rounded individual.
Education Officer Dexter Backus congratulated all of the students who participated in PRESPAF 2020 and commended the parents and teachers for their hard work.
To say to our students, a job well done. Let's not just look at the performing arts as something by the way, but for the true value that is added to our everyday lives. For it was the many virtual performances which give us some sense of normalcy during this COVID-19 pandemic. So let us go forward investing more time and money into the performing arts in order to reap a rich reward in the not too far future. Special recognitions for their outstanding work must be given to the Ministry of Tourism, Sport and Culture and the sponsors, the East Caribbean Group of Companies, for making the 2020 PRESPAF a success. Also, the parents and teachers must be recognized and congratulated for the support and time spent in developing the performing arts in the students' formative years.
As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to affect the tourism industry, local stakeholders have been engaged in several unique initiatives to help keep their business operations afloat. One of the initiatives is the promotion of a staycation, which will allow hotels to generate income while allowing locals to enjoy the many products and services these hotels offer. Speaking to a news team at a farmers market at the Paradise Beach Hotel on Sunday, Minister of Tourism, Sports and Culture Cecil Sesmaki endorsed the initiative.
Last 3 months, we've had no visitors coming to the destination SVG, and therefore we are looking internally as Minister of Tourism, Sports and Culture. I've been promoting for the last 2 months in a very focused and specific way the concept of staycation. And staycation means that Vincentians can choose a hotel, go and spend a weekend, a week, 2 weeks at specially arranged rates, discounted rates, and they can enjoy what's in Vincent and the Grenadines has to offer. And this is one such initiative that would allow them to enjoy what we have to offer, because most of the stuff here is local. But it means also that they can enjoy and capitalize on packages that are available. So the owners and operators of the hotel establishments would make arrangements with these persons, whether the tour operators, tour guides, or community tourism organizations that can put on packages for them.
The tourism minister said SVG is one of the most diverse tourism products, with rivers being one of the hidden gems which can be capitalized upon.
I have been leading from in front. Every weekend for the last 2 months, I have been going to a different place and discovering something new. And I've discovered several waterfalls and water holes, I call them, deep holes in the rivers. We have all of the beaches available. We have the Grenadines, and we have the different tourism sites. So persons have a variety of choices that they can make in terms of what they can do in these packages. The tour operators, the taxi operators, they already know where they take the visitors to, and therefore they will be very familiar with a lot of these sites and tourism areas. But the rivers have a hidden treasure really, and there's several waterfalls and water holes throughout the length and breadth of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So in addition to enjoying events like this, where you can come, mill around and see things that you can purchase right on spot or you can order, you can also enjoy the packages that are available throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Representatives of the Gender Affairs Division in the Ministry of National Mobilization today used the opportunity on the second day of the SVG Police Force a virtual crime exhibition to speak on some of the programs in place to help with crime prevention. Coordinator of the Gender Affairs Division, Laflo Kwame, said their mandate is to promote and guarantee gender equality so that everyone can have equal access to opportunities to enhance their lives. She noted that domestic violence is a gender affairs issue and that the ministry have the legislative framework to deal with the issue and provide support to perpetrators and victims.
And this is one way in which we can be able to sensitize persons about the act itself, the act of domestic violence, and how we can be able to support survivors and victims, and also to rehabilitate perpetrators of domestic violence. So we have, as a clientele, victims and perpetrators of domestic violence, single heads of households in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, adolescent teen mothers who they would have dropped out of school because of pregnancy. So we provide access for them to complete their education, because as they say, education is a way out of poverty. We have programs for men. We have the perpetrators of domestic violence, and it's not to say that men are the main perpetrators, but our statistics show that there's a high rate of crime committed by men as it relates to domestic violence wise. But we do have instances where females, they are perpetrators of domestic violence.
Project Field Officer of the Teen Mothers Program, Hayslan Lewis, highlighted ways in which the program helps with crime prevention.
Once they get pregnant, they register for the program, and once the baby is delivered, we give them about 6 months, the breastfeeding, bonding moment, right? And then once that is done, we'll call schools, or we work with education and we find placement for them. Based on whatever form they would have, dropped out of while pregnant, they either go back to that form or, based on the school, I would say. The school will decide whether they want to put them back there or not. But they go back to school, as Harry said, right up to tertiary university, because others who would have graduated from tertiary and went to university. Yes. We do give them assistance to go back to school, right? So we don't just put them in school and leave them there. Okay. And we also do school visits. In case of domestic, issues, we step in where we would administrate counseling. We'll put them on programs where their lives can be more effective.
The SVG Police Force Crime Prevention Exhibition this year is being held under the theme, Securing Citizens and Visitors Through Innovative Policing. And the police are investigating the circumstances surrounding a shooting incident that occurred at Clifton, Union Island yesterday, in which a 32-year-old resident of Redemption Sharps and a 22-year-old citizen of Grenada sustained gunshot injuries. The police say, according to their investigations, the victims were asleep at home in a rented apartment on Clifton, Union Island, when an unknown assailant or assailants entered their apartment and shot them about their bodies. They were subsequently rushed to mainland St. Vincent via the SVG Coast Guard Service to seek medical attention at the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital. Persons with information that can aid with the investigation and the apprehension of the offender or offenders are asked to contact the Assistant Commissioner of Police in charge of crimes at telephone number 1784-4561-339 or the officer in charge of the Grenadines Division at telephone number 1784-4571211 or the Union Island Police Station at telephone number 1784-4588-229 or any police officer that you may be comfortable with. All information, they say, will be treated confidentially.